I stayed overseas for nearly a year, seeking work and adventure. During that time, I rented out my apartment to a friend, with a perfect plan to return to my usual life once I came back. However, in reality, the friend living in my apartment got married and moved out, leaving it vacant for the past 6 months. After a long flight, I thought I could finally relax in my own space, but my life quickly took an unexpected turn. The first thing that felt off was an unfamiliar pair of sneakers sitting on the shoe rack. I didn't own such worn-out shoes. Could they have been left behind by my friend? Looking at the living room, I saw the shelves filled with things I didn't recognize, and a gaming console I didn't own was connected to the TV. Empty soda cans littered the table, and fossilized remains of nachos were scattered around. "Welcome back, sis." Clarissa's voice came from the kitchen as my younger sister casually walked out like she owned the place. "What are you doing here? Why are you in my apartment?" I asked, trying to stay calm, though jet lag made it hard to process the situation. "Oh, didn't Mom and Dad tell you?" "I'm staying here for a while. It's temporary." Clarisse spoke as if it were no big deal. I dropped my bag on the floor and glared at her. "You've got to be kidding me. This is my apartment." Clarisse shrugged. "Well, you were gone for so long and Mom and Dad said it'd be fine. I didn't think you'd mind." My blood pressure shot up instantly. "Didn't think I'd mind? You moved into my apartment without asking? And that's your excuse? How long are you planning to stay here?" Clarisse scratched the back of her neck and avoided my gaze. "Foon, I'm not sure yet. I've been unemployed for a while, so probably until I find my next job." Anger surged through me. Not only had my sister invaded my space, but even my parents had made this decision without consulting me. I immediately pulled out my phone and called my mom. After a few rings, she answered. "Welcome back, Audrey. How was your flight?" "Mom," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "Did you know that Clarisse is living in my apartment?" Mom hesitated for a moment. "Well, yes. We thought it would be fine. She needed a place to stay while you were away. It's just temporary. You didn't ask for my permission." I exploded in anger. "Don't overreact. She's your sister. Families help each other, don't they? Does being family mean you can ignore someone's boundaries?" I hung up before I could say something I'd regret and turned to Clarisse. "You need to leave by the end of today." Clarisse looked genuinely upset. "Where am I supposed to go?" "That's not my problem." But Clarisse made no move to leave. Instead, she started making a sandwich in the kitchen and then sat on the sofa, as if it were her own home. I didn't know what to do. I couldn't physically force my sister out, but I wasn't willing to leave things as they were. That night, as I lay in my bed for the first time in a year, I listened to the sound of Clarisse's video game leaking from the living room. This was not how I had imagined coming home. I couldn't believe my parents had approved this. Clarisse had always been their favorite. The child who could make mistakes and still be forgiven. Since we were young, Clarisse had been treated as someone special in our family. At a sports day event, when Clarisse fell and cried, our parents delayed watching my turn to comfort her. I ran my race alone, finishing third, but no one congratulated me. In middle school, when Clarisse failed a test, our parents gently said, "You're just not good at studying," and got her a tutor. When I scored A, they scolded me, saying, "You could have done better," and restricted my extracurricular activities. In high school, Clarisse broke curfew to go to the mall with her friends, and our parents laughed and said, "Did you have fun?" When I was just 5 minutes late, I was grounded for a week. Even when she used Dad's credit card without permission, they forgave her, saying, "She's learned her lesson." But when I bought stationery, my allowance was reduced. In college, Clarisse repeated a year and they supported her, saying, "She's finding her own path." Meanwhile, when I struggled with job hunting, they dismissed it as laziness. This unequal treatment was an unspoken rule that no one ever questioned. I had spent most of my life cleaning up after my sister, but this time it had gone too far. The next morning, I hoped Clarice had calmed down and come to her senses, so I tried to talk to her again. "Clarice, when are you leaving?" Without even pausing her game, she replied, "I don't know. Mom and Dad said they don't mind. I don't have a job, and you're hardly ever here, so you don't really need the space, right?" I was stunned by her audacity. That day, I spent my time trying to get my parents to reason with Clarice and venting to my fiancé, Glenn. Glenn was sympathetic but offered a practical suggestion. Maybe she has nowhere else to go. Talk to your parents again and set a deadline. A deadline. I sighed. She shouldn't even be here. Well, you can't just throw her out on the street, Glenn said reasonably. I knew he was right, but I still wanted to throw all of Clarice's belongings out the window, even though I knew I couldn't. As time passed, it became clear Clarice had no intention of leaving anytime soon. That evening, I called my dad, hoping for a more rational response than I'd gotten from my mom. "Dad, about Clarice, I need my space. This is my apartment. Why didn't anyone consult me?" His response was blunt. "Because we knew you'd say no." I was speechless. So they knew I would object and went ahead anyway. After hanging up, I paced my apartment, fuming. Clarice had turned my home into a mess and taken over my life. And my parents seemed to think I had no right to be upset, because family helps each other. This wasn't a problem I could solve in one day. Clarice showed no signs of leaving, nor did she make any effort to search for a home or a job. My family stood firmly on her side. This was only the beginning, but I intuitively knew this wouldn't end well. The next few days were filled with tension. Arguments and passive-aggressive exchanges with Clarice became a daily occurrence as she continued to occupy the sofa like a permanent fixture. The apartment, once my sanctuary, now felt like a shared prison with an inconsiderate cellmate. Whenever I tried to reason with her, Clarice responded with indifference or flimsy excuses. "I'm looking for a job," she'd say while scrolling through her phone, or "I have nowhere else to go," she'd reply, sprawled out on the sofa. Breadcrumbs littered the cushions. While I was at work, she seemed to spend her days lazing around the apartment. Every night, I vented my frustrations to Glenn over the phone. "She's impossible. She's not even trying to find another place or a job." Glenn sighed. "Audrey, I get that you're frustrated. But have you actually sat down with your parents to set a firm deadline? They need to understand how much this is affecting you." He was right. Phone calls weren't solving anything, and unless I took a stronger stance, this situation could become permanent. Summoning my courage, I called my mom and proposed a family meeting. She hesitated but eventually agreed. We arranged to meet at my parents' house. When I arrived, the atmosphere was tense. My mom greeted me with a nervous smile, my dad wore a stern expression, and Clarice plopped into a chair the moment she entered, glued to her phone, as if she had more important things to do. "Audrey," my mom said, ushering me in. "Won't you sit?" I made coffee. "I don't need coffee. We need to talk." I began explaining how Clarice had taken over my apartment, but my dad leaned back in his chair, crossing his arms. "What's there to talk about? Family is supposed to help each other." The word help made my blood boil. Help. She's occupying my space without permission and isn't even trying to find another place. How is that helping? Clarice scoffed. "You're overreacting. It's not like I've made a huge mess. Look at the living room." "It's a dump," I shot back. "That's enough," Audrey, my mom, interrupted in a calm but firm tone. "Clarice is going through a tough time right now. She lost her job and rent is so expensive. Surely you can understand that." Maybe I could have understood if someone had asked me, I snapped, unable to contain my anger. "Instead, you decided she could live in my apartment without even consulting me, as if my opinion didn't matter." A long silence followed. My mom glanced at my dad, who cleared his throat. "Audrey, you weren't here. What were we supposed to do? Let her become homeless?" I gestured to their spacious house. Why can't she move back here? Clarice finally looked up from her phone. I need to stay close to the city to find a job. Brilliant idea, I said with dripping sarcasm. But do you actually have a plan? Are you even looking for a job? Or are you planning to squat in my apartment forever? I'm thinking about it. Clarice mumbled, avoiding my gaze. That's not good enough, I said, turning to my parents. If this is supposed to be temporary, let's set a deadline. 2 weeks. That should be enough. My mom looked shocked. Audrey, be reasonable. No, Mom. I've been reasonable this whole time. That is my apartment. And I'm done being walked all over. My mom opened her mouth to argue, but my dad raised his hand. Fine. If that's how you feel, 2 weeks it is, he said curtly. My mom looked surprised. Clarice tilted her head in disbelief. Dad, what did you just say? 2 weeks, he repeated. I was stunned that my dad had finally taken my side, but Clarice looked as if she had been betrayed. This is unbelievable, she muttered, grabbing her phone and stomping out of the room. My mom rubbed her temples and sighed deeply. Audrey, was this really necessary? Yes, I said firmly. I just want my space back. That doesn't make me the bad guy. My mother said nothing, and the silence hung heavily between us. A part of me felt guilty. It was clear she wanted to help Clarice, but at the same time, for the first time in days, I felt a glimmer of hope. It felt like I had some degree of control over the situation. The next morning, I left for work early. Around midday, I received a message from Clarice. You didn't have to corner me like that. Thanks for making me feel awful. I didn't reply. I wasn't going to coddle her or start another argument. Over the next few days, I was away on a business trip and left the apartment unattended. When I returned home after several days, I ran into my neighbor, Julia, in the hallway. She greeted me warmly, though her tone carried a hint of curiosity. So your sister is staying with you, she said casually. Yes, I replied curtly. I wasn't in the mood to explain. Julia tilted her head with a curious expression. It's been quite lively over there. Lots of people coming and going. What do you mean? You know, late-night gatherings with friends, loud music playing. Her words made my stomach churn. How could my neighbor know more about what was happening in my apartment than I did? And on top of that, Julia continued, I've noticed some suspicious people coming in and out recently. I marched straight to Clarice's room and knocked on the door. Explain yourself right now. What's going on? What are you talking about? She shot back angrily. I heard from the neighbor. You've been having loud parties late at night with lots of people. They're just friends staying over. It's not a big deal. Not a big deal? This is my home, not your social hub. If this continues, you'll be out before the 2 weeks are up. Clarice muttered something under her breath and stormed off to the bathroom, slamming the door behind her. I stood trembling with anger in the living room. If all she did was sit on the sofa playing video games, I was willing to honor the family meeting's decision. But the situation was spiraling far beyond what I had anticipated. The real turning point came one evening when Julia knocked on my door again. Her expression was a mix of worry and hesitation. Audrey, I wasn't sure if I should say this. She glanced over her shoulder before lowering her voice. But I saw your sister meeting some suspicious people in the parking lot. A wave of dread swept over me, Julia continued. I was curious and watched from a distance. She had a lot of cash on her and seemed to be exchanging something with them. Do you know anything about this? With trembling hands, I began searching the spare room Clarice was staying in. Most of it was clothes and miscellaneous items, but beneath a pile of clothes, I found a locked metal box. It was small but heavy, and the fact that it was locked only deepened my suspicions. As I stared at the box, I felt as though opening it would cross a line. But another part of me, tired of Clarice's lies, couldn't resist the urge to uncover what she was hiding. I made up my mind and began searching for the key. After some time, I found it, quickly grabbed the box, and opened it. The moment I opened the box, a wave of realization, deep sadness, and betrayal washed over me. It was the worst-case scenario I had imagined. Quietly, I placed the box back where I had found it. My mind was in turmoil. This was no longer just a matter of an unwanted house guest. If Clarice was involved in illegal activities, especially using my apartment as her base, I could also be held responsible. The next morning, I resolved to confront her. When I cornered her in the kitchen, she looked up from her cereal with a disinterested expression. "Explain the box," I demanded. Her spoon froze mid-air. "What box?" "The metal box hidden under your clothes." "Oh, that," she replied, raising her voice slightly. "I'm just holding it for a friend." I let out a bitter laugh. "Do you even realize how ridiculous that excuse sounds? Who is this friend, and why would they trust you with cash and drugs?" Clarice didn't answer. She stared at the floor, like a child caught stealing cookies from the jar. "Of course," I said, my voice cold. "You have until the weekend to get out. I don't care where you go, but you're not staying here another minute longer." "Audrey, can't you calm down a little? I'm setting boundaries and enforcing them." I cut her off firmly. "There are no second chances." I knew I was right. Clarice had crossed far too many lines, and I could no longer enable her behavior. Still, a small part of me felt conflicted. She was family, and while I hated her actions, I didn't want to abandon her completely. A few days later, the situation took an unexpected turn. While I was sitting in the living room, I heard a knock at the door. When I opened it, Clarice's ex-boyfriend, Daniel, was standing there. "It's about Clarice," he began, his face serious. "I thought I should warn you." He looked me straight in the eye, his tone grave. Apparently, Clarice wasn't just buying drugs, she had also borrowed a significant amount of money from some dangerous people. If she doesn't pay them back soon, they'll come after her and anyone connected to her. I felt my blood run cold. "What do you mean by anyone connected to her?" Daniel's expression hardened as he replied. "They know she's staying here. Audrey, if they can't find her, they'll come after you instead." For a moment, I couldn't breathe. This wasn't just about Clarice's irresponsibility anymore. This had escalated into a dangerous situation that could involve my family and anyone else close to her. I now understood just how serious the threat was. Why am I being dragged into this? I felt my voice trembling as I spoke. Hours after Daniel's visit, I was consumed by panic and fury. I thought my relationship with Clarice had always been strained, but now it felt like I was living atop a ticking time bomb. If what Daniel said was true and I had no reason to doubt him, then just having Clarice under my roof put me in danger. The frustration I felt over her freeloading now seemed trivial compared to the gnawing fear taking root in my chest. The moment Clarice walked through the door that night, I confronted her. "We need to talk. Now." "Now," she mumbled, avoiding my gaze. "It's not that serious." "Not that serious," I repeated her words. Something inside me snapped at that moment. I couldn't take it anymore. Right in front of her, I pulled out my phone and began typing a tweet. "I have something to share about family. I came back from living overseas to find my sister squatting in my apartment without permission. My parents decided this without consulting me. Family betrayal, no boundaries." Clarice noticed what I was doing and went pale. "What are you doing?" I ignored her and continued typing. "My sister is conducting illegal activities from my home and associating with shady people. My parents, fully aware of this, prioritized her convenience over my safety. Is this what family loyalty means? Toxic family, family secrets?" The post went viral almost immediately, with replies and messages of support flooding in. "Dad. Audrey's exposing us on social media," Clarice yelled into her phone as she frantically called him. Minutes later, my mom's name lit up my phone, but I deliberately ignored her call. Instead, I typed out another post. How much injustice is justified with the phrase, "because we're family"? My family endangered my life and treated it as normal. I refused to stay silent any longer. Breaking free from toxicity, truth about family. Within hours, the post garnered thousands of likes and comments, with people sharing their own similar experiences. My story became a voice for countless others dealing with family issues. The next morning, I received a message from my father. "I saw your posts. Even my colleagues are reaching out. Take them down immediately." His commanding tone only fueled my anger. I opened social media again and wrote a detailed post. I shared memories of how Clarice had always been favored, while I was expected to endure and sacrifice. I explained how the current situation was proof that nothing had changed. My friends rallied behind me, sharing my posts widely. Even acquaintances of my parents reached out, expressing their surprise and sympathy. My mom called me in tears. "How could you do this?" "Airing our family's dirty laundry." "Mom, the shame isn't in exposing the truth. It's in behaving this way in the first place," I replied firmly. She was speechless. Glenn was worried about the fallout but stood by my decision. "Sometimes, exposing the truth is the first step toward real change," he said. The public reaction to my posts exceeded my expectations. I received messages from people who had suffered under similar family pressures, thanking me for giving them courage. My posts became a small spark shedding light on the darker aspects of family dynamics. Most importantly, my actions had an impact on my family. For the first time, my father, concerned about his professional reputation, began to reflect on their behavior. My mother, shaken by the reactions from her friends, began to realize the need to reassess her relationship with me. Clarice, unable to endure the mounting criticism flooding her social media accounts, left the apartment before the weekend arrived. It was clear she could no longer stay comfortably after everything that had happened. After she moved out, I went to the police. I reported Clarice and the illegal activities of those she had been associating with. Her exact whereabouts remain uncertain, and it seems she hasn't been apprehended yet, but it's likely only a matter of time. Sometimes I've learned the most effective form of retaliation is simply telling the truth. The days of staying silent to protect my family's reputation are over. I wrote one final post. Family is important, but only when mutual respect for each other's boundaries exists. If you're reading this and suffering in a similar situation, know that you are not alone. Truth about family, the start of change. This experience taught me a lot about my relationship with my family. Sometimes, trying to help those you love can put yourself in danger. And sometimes, the hardest decisions are the right ones to make.